welcome back to the Sisters Podcast. I am Betty Tucker, and with me today is Noodles. Unfortunately, Nat couldn't be here due to some technical difficulties, but we're working on it. How you doing today?
I'm okay. Boo, technical difficulties. Keep plaguing us. But yeah, I'm fine. I just had some chocolate and a coffee, so I'm awake. I'm with it.
That's good. Coffee is pretty much 90% of my blood supply, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, considering it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not really very good, but still.
Well, I mean, it's only 11 o'clock here, so just go by my time. It's fine.
11 o'clock? That's brandy drinking time. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so what are we doing today, Betty?
All right, well, today we are going to continue on our 50 States of Weird, and it has taken us to Arkansas. Arkansas is an interesting state. They have a lot of interesting people that live there. That's where Walmart's home base is, which is kind of weird.
I've never heard of Arkansas.
It's a weird place. The way it's spelled also kind of throws people. They think it's called Arkansas because it's A-R-K-A.
It's communist Kansas.
It is. It's A.R. Kansas, so it's communist Kansas. The story we're going to be focusing on today is the Texarkana Moonlight murders. Texarkana is in Arkansas, and it's right on the border of Texas and Arkansas. Could they have come up with a better name than Texarkana? No, they couldn't.
No.
So,
what?
The Moonlight murders, they happened in the 40s, and so that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And this entire episode is going to be dedicated to it because this is a little bit long. So let me start with just asking you: have you ever heard the urban legend, the Hook?
No, I mean I've heard of Captain Hook.
Okay, well that's different. Totally different.
Is it? Wait, is it the Hashling slasher?
Maybe. Well, first of all, funny story about the Hook.
Oh.
It always involves someone with a hook hand. And there's this...
Surprise, surprise.
Yes, someone has taken this urban legend and fed it into Google Translate and translated it into like 5 or 6 different languages and then translated it back to English.
Oh, no.
And the ending part, which I will tell you the ending part once we get down a little bit into the story. The ending part came out as man door, hand hook, car door. and that has become me and my husband's like motto. Like anything's going on, like if he thinks I'm upset and I'm not upset and he needs to just check in with me, he's like, man door, hand hook, car door. And I'm like, man door, hand hook, car door.
It's like a tongue twist. Oh my God.
It is. It's great. Okay, so. The Hook is perhaps one of the most famous campfire tales in the United States. There are several variations of the story. It usually is set in the 1940s or 50s, with a young couple parking in an isolated area, normally referred to as like a lover's lane or a makeout point. They hear a news bulletin come across the radio that an escaped mental patient or a murderer with a hook for a hand is on the loose in the area. Some variations say that the girl wants to leave, so the couple returns home immediately, but when they get out of the car at their destination, they discover a bloody hook stuck in the car door. Man door, hand hook, car door.
Oh my God.
Another variation says that the couple ignores the radio warning and stays. And then the boyfriend decides to get out of the car and go into the woods to relieve himself, but he never comes back. The girl begins to hear a scraping sound on the roof of the car, but she gets out and she finds no boyfriend. She's looking around everywhere, but then she notices her date, Butchered, hanging upside down from the tree, and his fingertips are what's scraping the roof, making the noise.
I hate when that happens.
I do too. Yeah, it's completely ruined the mood. This tale began making its rounds in the early 1950s and is believed to have originated from the real-life Moonlight murders that plagued Texarkana in 1946. The Texarkana Moonlight murders, a term coined by the news media, were a series of unsolved murders and other violent crimes committed in and around Texarkana in the spring of 1946 by an unidentified serial killer known only as the Phantom Killer or the Phantom Slayer. The killer is credited with attacking 8 people within 10 weeks, 5 of whom were killed. The attacks happened on the weekends between February 22nd, 1946, and May the 3rd, 1946. The first two victims, Jimmy Hollis and Mary Larry, survived. At around 11:45 p.m. on a Friday night on February the 22nd, 1946, Jimmy and his girlfriend, Mary Janine Larry, parked on a secluded road known as a Lover's Lane after having seen a movie at the theater. The area was approximately 50 feet off Richmond Road on an unpaved street, around 100 yards from the last row of city homes. Around 10 minutes later, at approximately 11:55 p.m., a man wearing a white mask, which resembled a pillowcase with eye holes cut in it, appeared at Hollis's driver's side door and shone a flashlight in the window. Unsure of whether or not he was being pranked, Hollis told the man, "You have the wrong person," to which the man responded, "I don't want to kill you, fella, so do what I say." Both Hollis and Larry were ordered to get out of the driver's side door. The man ordered Hollis to take off his goddamn breeches. After he complied, the man struck him in the face twice with a pistol. Mary would later tell investigators that the noise was so loud that she thought initially that he had been shot. However, it was just the sound of the bones in his skull fracturing. Thinking the assailant wanted to rob them, Mary showed him Hollis's wallet and showed that there was no money inside. Then she was soon after struck with a blunt object. The assailant ordered her to stand, and she did. He told her to run. Initially, she tried to flee into a ditch, but the assailant ordered her to run in a different direction up the road. Mary spotted an old car on the side of the road, but found it to be empty, and was again confronted with the attacker, who asked her why she was running. When she responded that he had just told her to run, he called her a liar before knocking her down and sexually assaulting her. After the assault, Mary fled on foot, running a half-mile to a nearby house. She attempted to call a passing car, however, they passed her by. Mary was able to awaken the residents of the house and phone the police. Meanwhile, Hollis had regained consciousness and managed to flag down a passerby on Richmond Road. The motorist left Hollis at the scene and drove to a nearby funeral home where he was able to call the police. Within 30 minutes, Bowie County Sheriff W.H. Bill Presley and 3 other officers arrived at the scene of the attack, but the assailant was already gone. They found Hollis's pants 100 yards away from where he had parked. Mary was hospitalized overnight for a minor head wound. As for Hollis, he was hospitalized for several days to recover from multiple skull fractures, but both survived the attack. Hollis and Mary gave conflicting reports to law enforcement as to what their attacker looked like. Mary claimed that the man was wearing a white bag over his head with cutouts on his eyes and mouth, and that she could tell that he was African American. Hollis actually claimed that the man was white and around 30 years old, but conceded that he could not distinguish the features of his face and he was blinded by the flashlight. Both agreed that the assailant was around 6 foot tall. Law enforcement repeatedly challenged Mary's account, believing that she and Hollis knew the identity of the attacker, but they were covering up for him. The first double murder, 4 weeks later, involved Richard L. Griffin, 29, and his girlfriend, Polly Ann Moore, age 17. That's a weird age gap there. Both were found dead in Griffin's 1941 Oldsmobile sedan on Sunday, March 24th, 1946, between 8:30 and 9 a.m. by a passing motorist. The motorist saw the parked car on a lover's lane named Rich Road, near the railroad spur, 100 yards south of US 67, close to the night spot Club Dallas. The motorist at first thought that both of the people inside were asleep. Griffin was found kneeling between the front 2 seats with his hands in his pockets. Moore was found sprawled face down in the back seat. Griffin had been shot twice while still in the car. Both had been shot once in the back of the head, and both were fully clothed. A blood-soaked patch of earth near the car suggested to the police that they had been killed outside the car but then placed inside the car. However, it did kind of look like they were both shot outside or could have been shot inside. A .32 caliber cartridge shell was found on the ground, possibly shot from a Colt pistol wrapped in a blanket. No reports indicated that either Griffin or Moore was examined by a pathologist. It was rumored that a sexual assault had occurred, but modern reports refute the claim. In response to the murders, police launched a citywide investigation along with the Texas and Arkansas City Police, the Department of Public Safety, Miller and Cass County Sheriff's Departments, and the FBI. By March 27th, local police had interviewed around 50 to 60 witnesses, including patrons and employees at the Club Dallas, a local bar near the crime scene. By March 30th, police had posted a $500 reward in an effort to gain any new information on the Griffin and Moore cases, that would lead to the arrest and conviction of the person who was responsible. However, the reward yielded no fruitful results, instead producing over 100 false leads. The second double homicide, involving Paul Martin and Betty Jo Booker, occurred exactly 3 weeks after the first murders. On the evening of Saturday, April the 13th, Betty Jo Booker, age 15, was playing her alto saxophone in her regular weekly gig with her band at the VFW Club. Around 1:30 in the morning, Sunday, April the 14th, her friend, Paul Martin, age 16, arrived to pick her up from her performance. This was the last time the pair were seen alive. Martin's body was found around 6:30 that morning by Mr. and Mrs. G.H. Weaver and their son, lying on his side by the northern edge of North Park Road. Blood was found further down on the other side of the road by the fence. He had been shot 4 times. Booker's body was not found until approximately 11:30 in the morning, 2 miles away from Martin's body, behind a tree. She was found by members of the Boyd family. Her body was laying on its back, fully clothed, with the right hand in its pocket. Booker was shot twice, once through the chest and once in the face. The weapon used was the same as the first double murder, a .32 caliber automatic Colt pistol. Martin's 1946 Ford Club Coupe was found about 3 miles away from the Booker's body, 1.55 miles away from his body. It was parked outside Spring Lake Park with the keys still in it. The authorities are not sure who was shot first. Sheriff Presley and Texas Ranger Captain Manuel Lone Wolf Gonzalez said that the examinations of the body indicated that both had put up a terrific struggle. Martin's friend, Tom Appleton, said he did not believe that an argument had happened between the victims and that Martin hadn't had any enemy. Law enforcement was unable to locate Booker's saxophone at the crime scene. The saxophone was eventually discovered, however, around 6 months later, on October the 24th, still in its black case, in the underbrush near where Booker's body was found. A reward fund exceeded $1,700 was accrued for information leading to the persons responsible for the Griffin Moore and Martin Booker murders. Rumors circulated throughout the area, with one rumor suggesting that a local minister had turned in his own son as a suspect in the Martin Booker murders. On April the 18th, Captain Gonzalez issued a statement to the public during a press conference verifying that the murderer had not been caught and that the rumors circulating among the public and in the newspapers were a hindrance to the investigation and harmful to innocent people. Finally, almost exactly 3 weeks later, Virgil Starks was killed and his wife Katie was severely wounded. On Friday, May the 3rd, before 9 p.m., Virgil Starks, age 37, a farmer, was in his modest ranch-style living room on a 500-acre farm off Highway 67 East, almost 10 miles northeast of Texarkana. He turned on his favorite weekly radio show, and his wife Katie, 36, had given him a heating pad for his sore back. He sat in the armchair in the sitting room, which was just off of the kitchen and the bedroom, while Katie was in the bedroom lying down on the bed in her nightgown. She heard something from the backyard and asked Virgil to turn down the radio. Seconds later, while Virgil was reading the May 3rd edition of the Texarkana Gazette, 2 shots were fired into the back of his head from a closed double window 3 feet away. Katie did not hear the gunshots. Instead, she heard what sounded like glass breaking. She thought Virgil had just simply dropped something, and so she got up to go investigate and see what had happened. As she entered the living room, she saw Virgil stand up and then suddenly slump back down in the chair. She saw blood. She ran over to him and lifted his head. She realized that he was gone. She ran to the phone to call the police. She rang the wall crank phone 2 times before being shot twice, once in the face, from the same window. She dropped to her knees, but still managed to get back on her feet. She ran to get the pistol from the living room, but was blinded by her own blood. She heard the killer trying to tear through the rusted screen wire on the front porch. She thought she was going to be killed, so she stumbled towards the bedroom near the front of the house to leave a note. Meanwhile, the killer ran to the back of the house and made his way up the steps and into the side screen porch through the screen door. She heard the killer coming through the kitchen window, so she turned around and ran through the living room, through the bedroom, down a hallway, through another bedroom, and into the living room and out the front door, leaving behind a virtual river of blood and teeth throughout the house and across the street. Barefoot, in her blood-soaked nightgown, she ran across the street to her sister and brother-in-law's house, but no one was home. So she ran 50 yards more to A.V. Parter's house. Parter answered her call for help. She gasped, "Virgil is dead." then collapsed. Parter shot a rifle into the air to summon the neighbor, Elmer Taylor. Parter called to Taylor to bring him his car because Mr. and Mrs. Stark had been shot. Taylor, along with Mr. and Mrs. Parter and their baby, rode Miss Parks to the hospital. Miss Parks gave Mr. Taylor, the driver, one of her teeth with a gold filling in it. She was in a semi-conscious state, slumping forward on the front seat. Although she lost a considerable amount of blood, she showed no signs of going into shock, and her heart rate remained normal the entire time. Miller County Sheriff W.E. Davis, who became the head of the investigation, questioned Miss Starks in the operating room. The news was printed on the front page the next morning, Saturday, May 4th, reading, "Murder rocks city again. Farmer slain, wife wounded." After the first double murder, some parents warned their kids about being out at nighttime. The second double murder shocked the city, and curfews were set in place for businesses. The height of the town's hysteria snowballed after the murders of Virgil Starks. The Texarkana Gazette stated on Sunday, May the 5th, that the killer might strike again at any moment, at any place, and for anyone. Before, it was normal to leave your house completely unlocked. But soon the residents started locking their doors, pulling down the shades, blocking the windows, and arming themselves with guns. Some nailed sheets over the windows. Others just nailed the windows completely shut. Some used screen door braces and window guards. The day after the Starks' death, several residents bought firearms and locks. Stores sold out of locks, guns, ammos, window shades, and Venetian blinds. The Texas Rangers came to investigate, including the famous M.T. Lone Wolf Gonzalez. The murder sent the town of Texarkana into a state of panic throughout that summer. At dusk, city inhabitants heavily armed themselves and locked themselves indoors while police patrolled the streets and neighborhoods. Most of the town hid in fear inside of their houses and hotels, sometimes even leaving town. Some youths took the matters into their own hands, trying to bait the Phantom so that they could kill him. After 3 months without any Phantom attacks, the Texas Rangers slowly and quietly left town to keep the Phantom from believing that it was safe to strike again. The murders were reported nationally and internationally by several publications. In 1976, The Town That Dreaded Sunfall was released internationally, and it was loosely based on true events, despite its claim that only names had been changed, because the movie claimed that the story you are about to see is true, where it happened, how it happened. The film fabricated several parts, which also led credence to the man-door, hand-hook car door myth. The disappearance of Virginia Carpenter, a cold case in Texarkana in 1948, has been speculated to be the work of the Phantom as well. The prime suspect in the case was U.L. Sweeney, who was linked to the murders by statements of his wife. Max Tackett, a 33-year-old Arkansas State police officer, a rookie at the time, realized that the car had been stolen the same night as one of the murders, and that previously stolen car had been found abandoned. On Friday, June 28, 1946, Tackett found a car in the parking lot that had been reported as stolen. He staked out the car until someone came back for it, and then arrested a 21-year-old woman, Peggy Sweeney. She had just gotten married in Shreveport, but said that her husband was currently in Atlanta, Georgia, trying to sell a stolen car. Homer Carter, the chief of police in Atlanta at the time, told Tackett that a man had tried to sell a stolen car to one of the citizens. Tackett asked the citizen if he would recognize the suspect, but the citizen said he couldn't. Tackett noticed that the citizen himself had a distinct appearance, which included a cowboy hat and boots. Tackett told the citizen, "You couldn't recognize him, but he would recognize you." Max Tackett asked the citizen if he would then walk around town with him in public. Tackett had the idea that the suspect would not want to see the citizen again and would try to avoid him. On a Saturday in July, Tackett walked into the Atlanta Motor Coach bus station on Front Street near Union Station with the citizen. Tackett saw a man run out of the building. Tackett chased him and caught him on the fire escape. The man, Ewell Sweeney, would not talk, but his wife Peggy confessed a great deal that he was the Phantom Killer and that he had killed Betty Jo Booker and Paul Martin. By law in 1946, Peggy could not be forced to testify against her husband, and because she was considered an unreliable witness, Ewell was not arrested for the murder. He was, however, arrested for circumstantial evidence and sent to prison as a habitual offender of auto theft. Two of the lead investigators in the case believed him to be the Phantom Killer. In a 2014 book, The Phantom Killer, Unlocking the Mystery of the Texarkana Serial Murders by Dr. James Presley, he also points that Sweeney is the culprit of all 5 attacks and that there is enough evidence to completely close the case. So there you go. That is the story of the Phantom Killer of Texarkana and possibly the origins of the Hook. So what do you think about it?
I mean, so it started off as a legend which kind of became real? Or was it just like legends have come from the fact that there was like a weird serial killer thing?
Yeah, that's what happened. First the murders happened, and then later the legends came to basically warn kids from like going to lovers' lanes.
Yeah, it kind of tickles me though. Like you like say make out points, and I'm just sitting here like make out point, and I was like, oh yeah, snogging.
Snogging, there you go. Which, if you kind of think about it, both horror movies and urban legends like that tend to work on the idea that if teenagers are getting up to no good and they're sneaking around and, you know, especially like in horror movies, if you're drinking and having sex and doing drugs, you're going to get murdered.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the virgins never get murdered.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a warning of, you know, keep your legs together, keep your pants on.
be good little children. Don't do
Exactly.
Don't do the nasty.
Don't do the nasty. Oh my God, don't do the nasty.
I don't know. It's like that. As you're reading it out, I'm sitting here like, oh my God, that's every horror movie trope ever.
I'm telling you, they stole like borrowed. Horror movies in general have borrowed from real events. Pretty much the entire time. No, I don't think that there was ever like this dude that was a child molester that was thrown into an oven and came back with knife hands and attacked people in their dreams.
Knife hands.
But there have been child molesters that have been taken out by, you know, angry parents.
Truth.
You know, there have been kids that drowned at a summer camp, and their parents take vengeance on people before.
Yep.
So
I mean, there's some credence to every story. Like this, like everything that is fictional has got to have some sort of basis in reality at some point. Because like even if it's just like I had this idea of like even like down to smartphones and tablets and stuff like years ago, that sci-fi stuff was just like that was completely futuristic. Like you watch movies from like the 90s and the 80s, and it's like, oh, we've got these magic devices we can talk on, and next thing they become a reality.
Well, yeah, I mean, even think about like Star Trek. They used to communicate.
Yeah.
All the time with like, you know, they touch their emblem on their chest and, you know, Mr. Spock or Mr. Scotty, and we all thought that was really cool because, you know, that's not something that could ever really happen.
Yeah, and it's like, you'll watch like shows from like years ago and say like, oh yeah, but like that, there's got to be some sort of truth basis in that because like smartphones as we know it now were worked on like back in the 80s, so it was like probably the idea of things come from that. So, but like horror movie tropes tend to come from like a basis in reality. Like you look at Hannibal Lecter is a good example because like he comes from like, you know, was it Jeffrey Dahmer or something like that? Like there was a famous like cannibalistic serial killer, and I can't even think of his name. And like, you know, a lot of the stuff that Hannibal Lecter does in the movie, like if memory serves right, I watched like a thing where like the director talked where they spoke to police detectives who've worked on cases like that and like talked about real things that cannibals would do to like lure people in, and then talked about how like they would like carve up people in that sense. And it's like stalkers have always been a thing, and you've always got like, you know, like there's always someone out there who's like up to no fucking good, and you're gonna and they're gonna put that in movies. But I don't know, it just like it kind of tickles. It's like always horror, the horny teenagers.
Even like horror TV shows, like I don't know if you ever watched the show Dexter. Which, if you haven't, it's amazing.
I've seen an episode or two.
Yeah, so, like, he's a serial killer, but he only kills other serial killers. So it's like, he's almost like a vigilante, but, yeah, he's an anti-hero.
So he's Batman.
Exactly. You know, but a lot of the stuff that he pulls from in his character, you can tell that he's pulling it from, like, the writers pulled it from different people. You know, like, oh, this is something that, you know, Son of Sam would do. This is something that, you know, this person would do, etc. Or, you know, not Paul Bundy, Ted Bundy. So yeah, I mean, you know, there is a basis of truth. I think that's the thing that makes a good horror film to begin with, is that if it's something that's truly believable that it could happen, it makes it that much more scary because you're like, oh my God, that could totally happen. Yeah. Like, you know, my house is down in the woods. We don't have any neighbors. And that movie, I think it was called The Strangers, came out where these people like knock on the door at the house in the woods in the middle of the night, and then they end up killing them. it freaked me the hell out. So, I mean, if horror movies have like a touch of believability, it makes them that much more interesting and scary.
I guess it's just like it's kind of creepy because like you can always it's always one of those things where you'll read things in the newspapers and stuff and be like, oh, that's really weird, and then you won't think of it ever happening. But if it happened like a road or two away from you, you're like, holy shit, these things really happen.
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
It's also kind of interesting too that they never actually officially caught the person who did it. I mean, they were pretty sure. Like a lot of the evidence did point to that one particular person, but they were never able to actually close the case. It's still considered open.
There's a few cases that have been like that though in history, like the really famous ones.
There's a lot like that actually. Like look at what was it? BTK was open for God almost 20 years before they were actually able to catch the one guy who was doing it.
Yeah, there was I can't think of the case, but there was one like that years. I'm literally just like brain dead today. But there was cases from years ago where like serial killers and stuff like were found. I can't think of it, but there is one case where a guy was like suspected to be a serial rapist.
Oh man.
And I can't remember what it was, but they had every single thing about it pointed to him, but they didn't have any physical evidence to convict him, and the rapes kept happening until he slipped up.
I think it was back in the 70s is when it happened. There was, I think it was called the Golden City or the Golden Gate Rapist, something like that.
I think that might be what I was thinking of.
Like he would call and leave messages like on the people's answering machines and shit. And it was really, really creepy. And I don't even know how many people he raped and attacked. And I think he murdered a few. And they didn't realize, well, they didn't really know who it was. They had kind of like a basic sketch of what he looked like.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't get around to actually catching him until someone in his family had done one of those Ancestry DNA type things.
Yeah.
And his familial DNA showed up, and that's how they caught him. And he had been a cop back then and investigated himself.
I think it was his sister.
Yeah, it was like a sister or a cousin or a niece or something. But yeah, so that's some crazy stuff. But yeah, so that's the story. And, you know, there's all kinds of stuff that's creepy that happens in real life that's terrifying. And, you know, sometimes, you know, reality is scarier than any kind of fiction could ever be.
One thing that always gets to me is like you're saying about like you know, this is kind of like the origin of that story of, you know, the kids who go to the snogging point somewhere and they go and like, you know, they're gonna go and be together and be naughty and everything. What if like does this also have a little bit of a basis in the whole camp? Because you said it begins as a campfire story, so like, you know, that thing where like people go camping and they talk around the campfire and next thing there's like a serial killer in the woods or some shit or like a creature.
Yeah.
Like do you think that has a basis with this as well?
It's possible, just somebody coming out of nowhere and killing you for indiscriminately for no reason. So, I don't know. But yeah, I guess that is where we're going to leave it today. Like always, we hope that you like the video, like the podcast, and you want to like and subscribe and share and ring that bell and all that stuff. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter and join the Discord.
Do all the things.
Do all the things. And if any of you have any stories that you want us to look into or have a story of your own that you want to, you know, have us tell, or you want to come on yourself and tell it, just hit us up and let us know. We've got, you know, we've got time. we want to hear your stories too. So
it'd be fun to have some more guests on.
Oh yeah, it'd be great. You know, any listener who wants to jump in here and have fun and talk and stumble over your words and do what we do.
Just don't say the cursed word that begins with a K.
No, never say that word.
That word's banned now. Also,
forever.
Don't post Markiplier gifts.
Oh my god, just the one. You can post the one.
The one gift.
But yes. So everybody have a good day. Thanks for listening. As always, I am Betty Tucker, and with me is Noodles.
Hi, bye.
And Nat is over here. Can you say bye, Nat?
Bye.
And, oh, wait. Hey, have you seen Kevin? Noodles, do you know where Kevin is?
Didn't he go to the shop? I don't know.
Hold on a second. Kevin! You want to add anything, dude?
I'm just disappointed.
I'm about done with you. Okay, guys. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.